A young woman vanished into thin air in a mysterious turn of events. Small town in Kentucky searching for answers for almost a decade. Let's get into the disappearance of Brookelyn Farthing.
Oh, what a start. Inside out and upside down. No stress, I'ma clean up this mess like Alice.
It was June the 22nd, 2013 in Berea, Kentucky. 18-year-old Brooke and her younger sister Paige were both nervous and excited as they both prepared for their driving test that day. Their older sister Tasha was working at the Stockyard restaurant, eagerly waiting to hear news and praying that they both passed. Her anticipation finally came to an end as her two sisters and mum, Shelby, walked into the restaurant. Brooke couldn't hide her big smile as she burst out the news that she had passed, but unfortunately Paige hadn't been so lucky this time. Still, the girls were in high spirits as they planned to celebrate their granddad Kenny's 70th birthday later on that evening. They were all excited to get together as one big family and enjoy the celebrations at their grandma Bonnie's house. They would all get together, eat good food, laugh, sing and make it a special day for their much loved granddad. As the Friday night was still young, Brooke, Paige and her cousin had plans to head to a birthday party on Red Lit Road. Shortly after arriving, Paige and her cousin decided to leave the party, but Brooke stayed with the friends she knew. She was planning to spend the night at her friend's house and had packed a small bag full of stuff for the night. Those plans would end up falling through as Brooke's friend had decided to stay over at a male's house instead of having Brooke stay over. This caused a small argument between the pair. After the argument, the friends left the party without Brooke, but Brooke was probably having fun and chatting with other people, so she stayed. Towards the end of the night, one of Brooke's intoxicated friends needed a ride home, but without her not having a car or ride herself, instead 20-year-old Josh Hensley offered to help. Brooke didn't know Josh very well and had only encountered him a handful of times due to him being friends with Brooke's ex-fiancé, Jared. It's not known who drove the car, but people saw Brooke, Josh and another male get into the car and drive off at around 2 AM. According to Josh, before dropping the male off, they went to Floyd Branch Road and rode horses which were somehow connected to Josh. After this, the plan was to drop the male off and then Josh was going to drop Brooke off, but instead Brooke and Josh went back to Josh's house in the 100 block on Dillian Court. The house was foreclosed, so it had no running water and no electric, so as you can imagine, Brooke probably started to feel uneasy sitting in the dark with a man she was only just acquainted with. And at 4 AM she would call her sister Paige asking for a ride home. Paige didn't have a car or a license and their cousin was too intoxicated to drive. According to Paige, Brooke didn't seem distressed at the time. Brooke asked Paige to lock the door at home but listen out for her arriving so she could let her in. Still needing a ride home, Brooke then texted her ex-fiancé asking if he would pick her up. Jared was working a night shift, so he agreed after he finished at 7 AM he would pick her up from Josh's house. She carried on asking friends for a ride home but didn't get any responses. At 4:26, so not even half an hour after being there, Brooke's text began to turn dark. She sent messages to her ex which read, "Please hurry. I'm scared. Hurry." Brooke must have felt very scared and unsafe to be sending frantic messages out. Her ex didn't get any more messages between 4:26 and 5:30. Then he will receive one final text from Brooke that read, "Never mind, I'm okay." And instead she was going to a party in Rockcastle County, which was around half an hour away. Her ex sent messages back asking who she was going with, but he never received a reply. Assuming she had made other plans and no longer needed a ride, he went home after his shift. It didn't make sense as she went from sending desperate messages to her friends to them being fine and going to a party. The following day, Brooke and her friends were supposed to attend a car show at 9 AM, but none of her friends could get hold of her. They called Paige and asked if she knew where she was. Paige recalled how she hadn't unlocked the door and realised that Brooke hadn't returned home that night. Her family was informed that no one could get hold of Brooke and they also tried calling her phone and calling other friends they thought she might have been with. Paige mentioned that she knew Brooke was at Josh's house and Tasha, their older sister, decided to call him. Josh's story was that at around 6 AM, he started to feel uncomfortable being alone with Brooke as he was friends with her ex and didn't want to be there when he picked her up. So he left Brooke sitting on the sofa smoking a cigarette while he went back to the horses on Floyd Branch Road. He said she mentioned going to a party in Rockcastle County, but he didn't know who with or who was going to be there. After ending the call, Brooke's family and friends continued to try and get in touch with her, and they kept each other informed on any updates. They weren't extremely concerned at this point, as it's not unheard of for 18-year-olds to go out, have one too many and crash on someone's sofa. Tasha's phone started ringing and it was Josh. Hoping he'd heard from Brooke, Tasha answered the phone to a very panicked voice on the other end. He started ranting about how he was scared and worried. Tasha started to calm him down and ask what was going on. Josh then claims he arrived back home at around 7 AM. Brooke had left, but her overnight bag and purse were still in his porch. Brooke was a girly girl. She always wanted to look her best and wouldn't have left her stuff to go to a party without taking the things she needed. She was very protective over her stuff, so it's not like her to be so careless and just forgetting it. Tasha insisted she'd come over and check her bag for any clues. This is when Josh said something disturbing. He claimed he couldn't get to her bag because his house was on fire. Now I don't know about you, but to me this is the first thing he should have said. Her family became extremely worried and immediately called 911. They reported Brooke as missing and explained Josh had mentioned a fire. They wanted to make sure that he had reported it because he had gone all day without mentioning it. The police scrambled to Josh's house and what they discovered was alarming. Brooke's belongings were still sitting on his porch as well as her shoes. Them shoes were the only pair that Brooke had taken to go out, and they also discovered that her phone was missing. The sofa was the only thing that caught a light, and it was so intensely burnt that it was down to the frame. The police tried to track Brooke's phone. They discovered it last pinged off the cell tower in the Blue Lit Road area, which is around 10 minutes away from Dillon Court. It didn't ping anywhere else after this. A huge manhunt began and locals were asked to check their property for Brooke. More than 16,000 acres of land was searched, including bodies of water. They also used sniffer dogs, but unfortunately nothing came of the searches. 200 people volunteered to search for Brooke. Extensive searches were done, but to no avail. In the background, the police investigated Brooke's recent calls and texts via her cell phone provider to try and find out about the party she was going to. After reading messages between all her friends at night and checking who she called, it became clear there was no party in Rockcastle County. This led them to believe that the last text sent wasn't sent by Brooke. At first, when the firemen put out the blaze, they deemed it unsuspicious. It wouldn't be for 2 weeks they would look back into it, and according to police and arson investigators, the fire shouldn't have started as it did because it's uncommon for a fire to start without electricity. In Josh's story, the couch would have been burning for a full hour, but in that hour it was the only thing that caught fire. It seemed very odd, but it had been 2 weeks and the wear and tear of the weather after being left outside would have removed any evidence. Brooke's mum Shelby also questioned Josh's phone call to the fire department. You would think the first thing he said was, "There's a fire in my house and that someone might be in there," but he didn't. As part of the Kentucky Crimes Against Children's Task Force, Josh has since been charged along with 2 other men to be in possession of indecent images of minors. Although the police have never named any suspects or persons of interest, Brooke's case remains open. Her family have since made a website that you can visit. They've offered a $14,000 reward to anyone with information. You can also purchase stickers for your vehicle, and all proceeds go towards the reward fund at People's Bank. As always, I'll leave the link in the description. Any bit of information may lead the investigators into the right direction, so I will also leave a number to contact. Brooke's family believe she was a victim of foul play. All they want is answers. As always, our thoughts are with Brooke's family, and we will never forget her story. They deserve to know the truth, and hopefully this video will help spread Brooke's story. I just want to know what you all think of this mysterious disappearance. Please like, comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching.